Happy Monday. I am here potentially solo today. Anthony is with a new client, and he should be hopefully popping over and visiting with us soon. But if not, I can take care of you. So today I want to talk a little bit more about resilience. I know we were going to do a 5-part series, but this last piece came into play. So we're doing a bonus session on resilience today. So resilience is the ability for the body to bounce back from difficulty. And the difficulty can be physical, mental, emotional, but it's how quickly and how easily your body bounces back from any challenge or difficulty that you're dealing with. And what we're seeing more and more and more of is people really having a low resilience factor, or in fact, the opposite of resilience is burnout. And burnout's an actual diagnosis. There's an actual diagnostic code in conventional medicine, where it's basically a collection of symptoms where they're going to diagnose you with burnout. This is where your body is just really struggling to come back from it. So this is where you see extreme fatigue, actually not even so extreme. You're seeing fatigue, hormone imbalance, weight gain is a big one for a lot of people. And really just feeling like you're not clear, foggy brain, not having clear thoughts, and really struggling as a whole, overall yuckiness, so to speak. And you start seeing a lot of people really struggling this. Women especially are really struggling now. And if you're a woman between the ages of 35 and 60, you're going to be more likely to struggle the most from things like burnout and low resilience, because not only are you dealing with everyday challenges, you're also dealing with perimenopause, menopausal symptoms that can actually last for up to 25 years from when they start. So even women in their 30s are struggling a lot of times with perimenopausal, premenopausal symptoms as the body starts adjusting and moving through into this next phase of life. And when that happens, what happens is the body then has to spend more time helping to balance hormones. And then the body has one more thing that it has to deal with. So right now, if you're leaning on caffeine, if you're not sleeping well, if you are not restoring and repairing at night, if you're leaning on sugar or processed foods, if you've got food cravings, if you've got that weight that you just can't figure out where it came from and why you can't get rid of it, no matter how hard you work out, if you're feeling very on edge, frustrated, I feel like you just want to kind of strangle everyone around you, this is when we start seeing more burnout or low resilience factors. And if your body can't bounce back from one thing, the next time the second thing pops up, it's even harder to start bouncing back, because you're basically it's like taking on extra weight, literally and figuratively, where your body just can't do it anymore. And then it starts going into what we would consider dis-ease or disease, right? And this is when you start seeing complete hormone imbalance. You start seeing autoimmune conditions. You start seeing thyroid issues, right? You start seeing your hair fall out. The sleeplessness gets worse. And you start seeing things like cancers and other illnesses popping up. And we don't want that for you. So if you're starting to feel this way, this whole idea, and very high achieving women, A-type personalities, I see you. We struggle even more because we're so good at ignoring those symptoms and doubling down and pushing through. And this double down, push through does not work for this type of issue. When you're in burnout or low resilience stage, if you start to try and double down and push through, this is when you're going to struggle the most, because now you're trying to push through the sign that your body is saying it doesn't have the resources left in order to be resilient, in order to bounce back, in order to repair. So you're just piling on. So because we're seeing so much of this, and still we're seeing some shakeout still from what was going on a couple of years ago with the shutdowns and some things like that, where people are really still struggling, kind of coming back from that emotionally. And I want you to really be clear that whether this is a physical stressor or an emotional stressor, a mental stressor, even a spiritual stressor, the body doesn't care where the stressors are coming in from. It just keeps piling it on. And there is a breaking point. There is a straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, and it's just too much. And so many of you And I was like this for years. So many of you are so used to ignoring the subtle signs that until your body is screaming at you, you don't even notice that your body is struggling. And an emotional stressor that your body takes on that's too much for it will show up as a physical symptom. A physical stressor your body is taking on can show up as a mental symptom, right? They're all connected. So I want you to kind of look at yourself as a whole being, a sensory whole being that you're taking in these senses physically, mentally, emotionally, all around you all the time. So it's usually some combination of a physical stressor, which could be just the air quality that you're dealing with right now, or maybe there's a food that you're eating that your body doesn't love. Or maybe there's EMFs, there's other challenges. Maybe you're getting things in plastics that you're eating. There's so many things. But then maybe there's an emotional stressor. Maybe you're in the middle of dealing with older parents that you're helping to move into a new place in their lives too. Or maybe you've got kids graduating from college and now you're moving into a new identity for yourself. Right? Or you've got children that you're struggling managing for whatever reason. And then you've got your boss and you've got your husband or you've got your friend that's dealing with her own things. And you're taking all of that in. And there is just a point where it's just too much. And when it becomes too much and it crosses over is when the body doesn't have the resources. So many of you are in a state of it's fine. And we all know what fine means, it's not fine. And you're trying to manage and you're trying to push through. And that may have worked for you to this point, but it's not going to work for you to get you here, right? What got you here is going to keep you here. And until you make some changes or until you know what changes are the most appropriate for you to make, you're not going to be able to get up over on this and come back and bounce back and be the resilient self that you are until you're able to let go of some of the weight emotionally, mentally, or physically that you are carrying literally and figuratively. So I came up with a resilient quiz. So you can actually just go to our website. I made it as super easy as I could for you to get to it. You can go to nourish123.com, and it's going to ask you a series of questions to really get a handle on where are you in your resilience factor. Like, what is really going on? And I want you to take a deep breath even before you take this quiz. It's super quick. And I want you to really answer the questions, and I want you to really feel the questions when you're answering them. What is going on for you? And are you being real with yourself about what really is what you should be taking on? And so many people, especially women, were trained early on in life to learn that they had to take care of other people, but they had to put themselves behind the care for those other people. And what happens is the body gets to a point where it's like, no, you won't have the resources to care for these other people if you don't take care of your own needs first. And then the fear of being selfish, or the fear of what we've been told is okay and the nice thing to do or the right thing to do, which is sacrifice yourself and your own self and well-being in order to take care of other people's needs. And then we become enablers and we become codependent. And then we really struggle with that type of underlying trauma experience. So the idea that we are sacrificing our own health and our own needs to make sure other people are getting theirs, that's a trauma response that has been pushed into us as an idea that we have to transact in order to feel loved or protected or safe. And that happens early on to a lot of us, usually before we turned 7 years old. So if you guys are noticing that show up in your life where you're putting all the needs or some of the needs that you have to the side and you're not getting to them. So you're not eating the way that your body really wants to. You're not getting out and doing movement or getting to the gym and doing what's right for you because you're pushing that stuff to the side to make sure everyone else is getting everything else that they need between your boss or your coworkers or your spouse or your kids or your parents, your friends. How many of you will drop everything for everybody else, but that you won't drop everything for yourself? Right. So this tells the body that I'm not important, which actually puts another stressor or another weight on you, which lowers our ability to bounce back and be resilient, which increases our ability or our chances of going into burnout. So I want you to be really clear right now. And this is a really busy time of the year for a lot of people. We've got graduations, we've got people moving off to college, we have people moving into new locations, right? We've got birthdays, we've got weddings. There's so many things going on, and life changes at this time of the year. And then we start to over increase the levels of saying yes to other people. We decrease the amount of times that we put ourselves first. And as we continue to get older, the reason this gets worse is because we've taken on so many things to this point, and we've lowered our resistance abilities. And it's not just because we're getting older, it's because there's more compounded time where we thought we were able to handle it. And what happens is we were getting away with handling it up to this point, and now the body is kind of coming unraveled. It's coming unglued. It's coming undone. So I don't want to see you guys slide into autoimmune if you haven't already. I don't want to see you slide into thyroid issues, which our thyroid is responsible and a part of so many different systems in the body, especially for those of you who are in perimenopause or menopausal states. The thyroid's incredibly important. So if the thyroid is already in trouble, that means your adrenal system, your adrenal glands are already struggling too, which means you're not repairing. Your resilience is low. You are struggling. If you are hitting fatigue, if you're not sleeping properly, if you're waking up knowing you've been in bed for 7, 8, 9, 10 hours sometimes, and you're waking up not refreshed and you're not ready to get up in the morning because you feel like you just can't do it, that means the body isn't getting into the repair stage at night. So it needs help. And these are the not so subtle signs, because these are not the subtle signs anymore. The subtle signs were the body being a little bit tired, the body telling you, hey, this isn't working, the body putting on some extra weight. They were some subtle signs. The I'm not waking up refreshed in the morning, that's not subtle. And if you're just noticing that now, that means there's a whole bunch of other things that happened to this point, which you ignored or pushed to the side or thought you could just white knuckle and push through. And the body's not okay with that. It's not. So what I want for you is to be able to learn how to bounce back, because just because you may be 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 doesn't mean that you don't have your own inherent resilience. And you have to be able to allow that resilience and support that resilience. Now, to become more resilient over time, you need to be able to challenge the body and the mind. However, you don't want to deplete the body of its resources. There's a fine line between the two. Challenge is with purpose and intent to help strengthen the system. Depletion is when you go all the way to the end and past where your body could handle, and the body doesn't bounce back from that. Right now, I don't want to upset those of you who are in a space where you're like, I just can't even. You can always come back. It's going to take more, however. But when you get to total burnout stage, you've completely depleted your resources. Your hormones are completely shot, or they're completely out of balance. Your thyroid's in trouble. You're leaning or dependent upon medications to do the job your body is actually capable of doing on its own. The question is, what is it that you need to do to be able to support the body, come back from depletion, put the energy and the nutrients and the pieces back into the body that it needs in order to be able to do what it was inherently designed to do, which is not only heal, but thrive. So you have to look at it from a mental, emotional, and physical space. What can I do to help physically support my body? Am I drinking enough water? Am I sleeping enough? Am I eating too much sugar? Am I eating a lot of processed foods? Am I eating foods that are low in nutrient value? Is my body capable of absorbing the nutrients once the body has the nutrients available to it? Many of you are struggling because you're eating right, but you can't figure out why you don't feel better. It's because your gut is in a state where it can't absorb and process the nutrition as you are giving it to it. That's a huge problem for most of the people that we meet. So you could be eating the perfect diet, but if your body is unable to absorb that diet, absorb the nutrients, break down the foods and get the nutrients out of it to absorb properly, you won't be able to bounce back. So of course you're frustrated because you're like, I'm eating right. What the heck is going on? If we're not drinking enough clean water, if you're drinking caffeine on a regular basis, that's actually depleting the body of the water resources that it needs. They're diuretics. So if you're not drinking at least half your body weight in ounces of clean water a day, and I don't mean, and this also actually could include herbal teas, not caffeinated, but herbal teas. Your body actually is probably struggling to get rid of toxins in its system. Emotionally, if you've taken on too much and you haven't learned how to release stressors, put the body back into a balanced state, your central nervous system is on overload and not in a balanced place, you won't be able to manage the stressors emotionally that are coming at you. I'm not saying you're not going to have life happen. What I'm going to say is if your body isn't managing those stressful life moments that are happening to all of us, and we're going to still have them happen, I can't stop life from happening. But if we're taking on these stressors and then it's having an impact on us for hours and hours and days and weeks sometimes after the impact of the event has occurred, that's more load on the body. It's not processing and it's not detoxing from that level of stress, right? If we're mentally struggling with too many thoughts and we're overthinking, we're underfeeling, that's a huge trauma response. And a lot of us never learned properly how to process how we feel. A lot of us then disconnected from these feelings because they hurt. And those of us who had trauma, which is pretty much everyone, but our levels of trauma may have been different. But those of us who had trauma up to the age of 7, that actually has an impact on the development of the brain. So you may need very specific support for brain development now in your 30s, 50s, 60s to help with challenges in brain development when you were 4 because of traumas that occurred when you were a kid. So we can absolutely support and help with that. And it looks like I've got some support here now too. Anthony, welcome. We are talking about brain development from when we are children and how it impacts the brain when we have trauma, when we're really early on, and how that actually often challenges the part of the brain where that people can connect with their feelings. So what happens is it's like it separates your mind from your body, like they're 2 separate components. So for those of you who don't feel like you connect, some of you may have had trauma that had an impact on the development of the brain in that area, so that your body actually separates those 2 things as if they were separate, but they're not. So that's something that one of the things that we work with our clients on, we do somatic healing, which helps to reconnect the mind and the body sensory experience so that you have a flow between the 2, even if you had trauma at an early age. So Anthony, we are just basically all in on the resilient factor, and I was just introducing them to the quiz that we put together, which is live on the website right now with all of the new pieces that we've been working on for weeks. So nourish123.com is where you can find that brand new quiz. I know you're coming off of another meeting that you've been on all morning, so I don't want to overrun you, but I also don't want to overwhelm you if you have something you want to say. I cannot hear you. I don't know why. I don't know. It doesn't look like it is our day for your auditory or the audio for you. And again, it could be me. Abigail is saying, thanks for sharing this. Absolutely. I see that you're here from San Diego this morning. I'm excited to see you. So Abigail, let me know, can you hear Anthony or is it just me? It would be helpful if we knew. Any questions that you guys have, let me know, but I want you to start thinking of stress as being something that can come at you from any angle. The body feels overwhelmed, and we're going to feel overwhelmed, and we have a system designed to handle that. right? It's the fight or flight system, but we shouldn't be in a chronic stage of fight or flight. Yeah, Melanie's saying she can't hear you. Apparently it is not just me. So I'm super excited that it's not just me, but I am frustrated that it is. Oh, nobody can hear him. Apparently no one can hear you. So you can just look cute. How about that? You just look pretty. But this is one of the examples of a stressor that can come at you. And, it's not ruining my life, right? Like but if I were in a totally stressed out moment where I wasn't managing stress really well, this would be one of those things that could really set me off to be like, oh my God, this is a problem. Nobody can hear them. Oh my gosh, technology. Oh, this is awful, right? And little things built up, it doesn't matter how large or small it is, it's how much the body thinks it's in danger or in trouble. So what I want for all of you is you just start really looking at the amount of times that your body perceives what you are going through to be stress. This is when your heart rate kicks up. This is when you feel like you can't get your thoughts together. This is when you hyper focus on something. This is when you get extremely tired after you've dealt with something, like you're just hitting a wall. This is when you can't sleep, even though you're hours past the incident or the episode. You're in just that overthinking. It's just ruminating in your head. These are all moments where you're in a chronic state of fight or flight. Or the flip side is more of that depressed state. This is more of a freeze mode where you just don't feel like doing anything. You don't want to get up. You're watching TV, but you don't even care about what you're watching. You're eating, even though you're not hungry. And that's another sign that people are struggling when you're having food cravings and you're eating things that you're not even enjoying a lot of the time, but you're trying to fill a void, right? So we start to see that with our clients too as another sign. And you start to really struggle. So what I'd suggest that you do is go and take this quiz and kind of see where you fall on the spectrum of resilience to burnout. And then afterwards, there's going to be a video that's going to pop up for you. And I'm going to talk and break it down even further into the scientific studies behind this and really what the body is doing. And I'm going to break it down. And there's 3 major pitfalls that we typically see for women, especially those of you who are high performers or high achievers who are used to pushing through and getting things done. You're the one everybody comes to because you get stuff done. But what ends up happening is we end up on the bottom of the barrel of things that get paid attention to, and the body has had it. So I don't want you guys to hit menopause like a train. The sooner you can get a handle on it, the better. But those of you who are actually through menopause or in the middle of it right now, that doesn't mean there's no hope for you either. I'm in my 50s. I am managing it. I am managing alongside of you guys with perimenopause. So I feel you. There are just days where you're like, really? But it doesn't have to be a train wreck experience. It doesn't have to be hitting the wall all the time. It doesn't have to be waking up in night sweats constantly, right? It doesn't have to be that you want to murder everyone around you. But we're told as women, oh, well, this phase, it sucks, and you're just going to have to suck it up and walk it off. And I'm like, no. It shouldn't be suffering. It shouldn't be this awful experience, right? So I highly recommend you go take the quiz. It's going to open up a whole 20, I think it's 25 minutes, 28 minutes video, also taking you through even more learning if you want more learning from there to really help you break down what this really looks like and how you can become more resilient. So Anthony, anything coming back from you, or you're just like, nope, I'm good. I'm just going to, nope. Apparently not. So you're just going to just smile and look good today. Yay. So, all right. So those of you, any other questions, any other things that I can answer for you on this Monday live call? All right. I'd love to see you guys. And I'd love your feedback on the quiz too, because this is the first time we are officially putting it out there publicly. I'm so excited about it. We've been working on it for a while. And keep us posted. If you have questions, you know where to find us. You can always go as well. If you'd like to pop over and grab our book, you can always grab that too. Transformational Healing right there. And Anthony, I think you may have a copy right next to you, maybe or not. But we've got Transformational Healing as well. And you can go to nourish123.com/th if you want to pop over and grab the book. It'll take you to Amazon and you can grab it there. And then for those of you who are like, hey, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to talk to you guys. I want to discuss potentially working together because I think I'm at this place. You can always go to nourish123.com/heal, which will open up our calendar, and one of our coaches, our resilient coaches, will pop up, and their schedule will pop up, and you can get onto their calendar to have a conversation to say, hey, what is going on? Let's map out a strategy on what I would need to become more resilient so I can move away or out of completely burnout and actually start moving into the most resilient place I can be at whatever age you are. I'm going to nourish123.com/heal, HEAL for that. All right. Well, you guys have a good rest of your Monday, and we will see you